Welcome to Modern Management of the Older Adult, brought to you by the Institute of Clinical Excellence.
Hi, Instagram. This is Dr. Samantha Chamberlain, part of the Older Adult Division's faculty. I am with my husband, Daniel Chamberlain, and just a little heads up, we have Essential Foundations starting this week, so if you haven't signed up yet, please go do that if you're interested in catching the next cohort of Modern Management of the Older Adult Essential Foundations. If you've already taken that, our next cohort of Advanced Concepts is just right after that next week, starting May 4th. And then our next live courses, we have a triple header May 20th. It's Scottsdale, Arizona, Simi Valley, California, and Charlotte, North Carolina. So if you're in any of those three areas, you can catch us on May 20th live somewhere across the country, which is awesome. So I somehow roped my husband into coming onto the podcast, probably because he's a podcaster and has like 3 different podcasts going and just really good at talking. So I thought I'd leverage that today. I posed the question to him, what are his thoughts on aging? And so before I even really elaborated on that, some thoughts were already coming to mind for him. And I wanted to take that and then kind of run with it of what his thoughts are on aging, but also what his thoughts are now that he's married to me. We've been married a while now, somewhere between 5 and 10 years. Eventually we'll bump that up to somewhere between 10 and 15. But what his thoughts are now that I'm teaching this information to other healthcare providers and I'm working with an older adult population and obviously am constantly working to build my knowledge to better serve them. So what are your thoughts on aging?
So when she asked me this question, I immediately thought football, because I'm also a football coach by trade. I do podcasts. There's a couple football, maybe a third football one I'm going to pick up. I don't know. I like talking football. So that's immediately where my brain went. And so when she asked me about aging, my thoughts were, as a community, as a country, whatever, we're generally think about aging in sports performance. Like, that's where my brain goes. So how old is old? Well, depends on which era you're in. In the last 20, 30, 40 years, right, old was like most professional athletes are done in their mid-30s. You might get to 30. Generally the ones that do break 30 into that 35 range. We obviously just recently watched Tom Brady, break the record books open and go for gold. And he was doing it at one of the top in the world to be able to do that at his level. So, but that's kind of how I thought of it. I thought about that 35-year cap, which is how old I am. So I'm feeling that age, right? If I have a workout, it takes me 2 or 3 days to get out, to get the soreness out, or maybe more.
Definitely some negative age bias I've had to work on with this one.
In my youth, obviously I could do a lot more, right? I could go play a game on Friday, and then by Saturday I'm up, running around being crazy. It's not always the way it works now. I try to keep myself in shape with my players as well as a coach, so I've kind of defeated that some myself. But, just like the common things, testosterone dropping in males. I don't know so much about the females. There's no males. We start losing that testosterone there in about our early mid-30s. The healing process slows down, so if you do get a heavy workout in, it takes longer for those muscles to regenerate or to build. And then our performance generally starts to fall off, which we see a lot that's where the professional sports come in. That's where your favorite, shortstop is retiring and moving on. You might get a pitcher that lasts a little longer because, they're not physically moving quite as much. They're just more isolated. Anyway, after Sam started taking these classes, that's when I kind of thought I got to see more of performance going into older age. So we did have Tom Brady, who's out there doing it at 40, however many years old. Dude was an old man, right? Aaron Rodgers is right behind him. Right, but in sports it is. And I guess that's it depends on where your relativity line is. And for us, there you go. I like it. So as she's been teaching, I have some older, folks in my coaching network. And a lot of them don't want to lift with the kids or don't want to run with the kids or whatever because it does hurt, right? And they're like, no, I'm too old for that.
He shows up in cleats and they're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I do wear cleats to practice.
But the kids love
it. Pretty ridiculous. But Sam, I remember the first story I heard her talk about that kind of opened my eyes was a 93-ish or something year old lady who was competing in powerlifting. Now, she
started 90.
Right. She started really late in life, and and then I think about my family. So my grandfather's at home in his early 80s and can't get off the couch. Like they're worried about it. He's going to keep his mobility for however many years, and we're looking at the end of his life because once you quit moving, I mean that's it, right? You're done. So it's kind of move or die, and unfortunately that's where he is in his life. So.
I didn't plan this shirt for today, but movement is medicine just really fits in right here.
I don't want to talk too long. Sam
Daly.
told me I couldn't go over 15 minutes, and I said she's crazy. But so I just think that as she took that class, and I started seeing those examples of people that are doing it in their older age, it's changed my mind on where that cutoff is. Sure, you're not going to go play professional sports. Most people aren't, in their mid 40s.
Seniors track and field. I clearly still have a lot to teach him. I'm going to start pole walking at 40.
Oh my god!
I
could do the sprints.
Yeah, you could. You literally could. You're so fast.
I'm not that fast.
You are.
So things that I just want to talk about how I plan to kind of keep myself getting there, and my wife and I push to help other people. We started a little. We coined the term "years earned." We put it on the back of our CrossFit shoes, which
Years saved.
Oh, it was years saved.
Okay.
Whatever. Years saved,
both are
years
accurate.
earned. A penny saved is a penny earned.
There you go. I mean,
years
both.
saved is years earned. We put it on the back of our CrossFit shoes, which we didn't wear too awful long because they're so uncomfortable. But she wears hers all the time. They're miserable for me. Extreme ownership is something I practice in all aspects of life, and that kind of comes from the military side, of course, with Jocko Willink really taking that to the next level with his book. And so I just think about I'm responsible for myself. So I have to be the one that breaks out of the bad, whatever it is, tendencies, or you got to get up and go run or go lift or whatever. So those things are I'm always trying to get better at. And then longevity being a goal or a destination. I can't secure my longevity in performance of sports right now, but I can get started. And as the path winds on, I can just make sure I'm always making the turn that will take me to that goal or that destination. If that's identifying science, I'm a big Huberman lab. I think that
You're speaking to the choir. Like
Yeah.
we're all bought in around here.
Yes, I absolutely love listening to him. I'd like to think I introduced you to him, but probably
Wrong way around. Like you just like
She
to take
swears
credit
she
for stuff I
introduced
tell you, and then like a month
Whatever.
later.
But just being very intentional with time and being intentional with what we're doing with our lives to ensure that I'm not in my grandfather's position where I can no longer move, and I'm looking at the end of my days just because I didn't do something along the way. So my thoughts on aging are changing. Everything's getting longer. Our species is, I think, actually, for the first time in a long time, our years expected age of death or whatever went down. But anyway, all in all, I think science is getting us there. We're increasing our time, our happiness with our lives, and just focusing on ways to ensure that longevity.
Another good point to think about here, and the reason why, like, that staying fit and that I love that he does work out with the kids is one, like, he really enjoys it, but it's a dedicated time that, he's going to be there, so he might as well be doing something with them too. So that's really kind of carved out into his lifestyle already. But for both of us, I think it's, especially in the last couple of years, became an even higher priority because we do both actually have a family history of dementia later in life. And I think a lot of that may be due more to an inactivity, and not just physically but mentally as well, kind of that detrimental retirement situation where they were good, they were very intelligent, very with it, and then retirement hits, and of course COVID played into that as well, as far as like just not challenging themselves cognitively, kind of just waking up, sitting around all day, and then going to bed and doing that day in and day out for months at a time. And so not just physically challenging ourselves, but we're always trying to learn something new. We have 1,000,001 hobbies and are like pretty miserable at all of them, or just, novices at most of them, but we make it work and we have a blast doing it. So as far as not just focusing in on, like, the physical aspect is huge, and that's very important, and we try to definitely convey that to those around us. So, I feel like my family's tired of hearing me say, there's an exercise for that, like, there's an app for that. I just throw out, there's an exercise for that, because they just roll their eyes at me and like, they don't even want to hear from me anymore because they know my answer is going to be go do something. But mentally, like, the same thing applies. Like, you have to challenge yourself, and it's not just crosswords and things like that, but your brain even gets used to that, so you have to find novel things to do. And go learn ballet, go learn Zumba, go learn kickboxing. Like, you don't have to be super intense and injure yourself if you're not at that level, but you can definitely start to learn those different things. And I think that plays a big role in cognitive strength as well. Any other thoughts on aging?
Move or die.
That's pretty much sums it up. I think so. Thank you guys. Happy aging.
Thank you for listening to the MMOA podcast. If you found this helpful, please share with someone that could benefit. And if you're looking for more practical content to help you better serve older adults, head over to www.mmoa.online, where you can learn more about our free resources, our community, continuing education courses, and our certification. Once again, that's www.mmoa.online. Thanks for listening.